Okay, now that we're recording, I can stop the screen share and I can officially welcome you. I'm going to spotlight Tim and our special guest here today, who is Footy. I know you're going to see his name and be like, isn't his name Jeffrey? But Footy, just when did that nickname take hold?
The line is, if my name's Jeff and I go by Footy, but only the only people that call me Jeff are my mom and my wife. So if you want to be in that company, sure, go ahead. But I actually, I might not respond if you call me Jeff intentionally. But Footy took hold a long time ago, like 7th, 8th grade, something like that, and kind of never turned back. I kind of look at it like Madonna or Beyonce, something like that. But I don't put myself in that company, but it's been Footy for a long time.
Apparently you do put yourself in that company, though. That's what's funny. Well, bear with me and the noise that's going to be out here. I couldn't resist getting this balcony here in New York because I'm finally back. So, Footy, the reason we dragged you into this conversation today is really this. What we do here in the weekly briefing, of course, is this is our time during the week where we pause and take 30 minutes and just talk about what's going on in the industry. What are the trends? What are the hot buttons that people are dealing with? And what's starting to hit every owner's mind right now is, whoa, this year is almost over. So here it comes, right? December is around the corner and owners become very reflective, right? This time of year, you start to look back and you have a glass of wine, you sit down with your spouse and you're like, what just happened? What did it all mean? And then you start to approach New Year's and say, what's next year going to look like? Is that a common pattern you've observed in yourself?
I think so. Great question, because I'm sure everyone thinks about that. And also, what do you do at year end? What's the list of things? Because you go from kind of this vision mode to, okay, what would I change? And then you start to write a list, and then it's how do I implement that? How do I execute it? But I'm curious, do you guys see, Tim and Joel, are there items that you would suggest everybody go through? Because you talked to a billion agencies over the years, and you know the recipe for success. So is there a magic list? I want to know.
Well, I'll just say this, in the years I was running a studio, certainly I went through that pattern every year and noticed that my peers were doing the same. And it's also often the time of year where there's a bit of a break because there's a holiday called Thanksgiving, there's a holiday around Christmas. So there's these times where you may not be super slammed. And I also know this, most creative studios and agencies are pretty slow in January, sometimes even into February, as clients get budgets approved and this kind of thing. So there's this, Tim, what would you call it? It's there's this moment where when you're a little slow, you realize, oh, we should be investing in our future while we're not just crazy busy with projects. But when the moment hits you, it's too late. You're already behind.
Yeah, I find the end of the year break really has that ability to kind of look forward. We already are retrospective anyways, right? We're looking back at the year we've had. And I think we all do New Year's resolutions to some degree. So it's good to just take advantage of the momentum that you have in that process. When it comes to practice, I think, we clearly have the understanding that the best way to deal with the future is to create it, right? We're all on the same page that that's the best way to do it. So, but if you never take the time to reflect on where your future is going to be, you don't know what the target is you're trying to hit. You don't know what goals you're trying to finance. You don't know what decisions to make in order to advance your company. And if you hold back that time of reflection and therefore that decision making, you won't go anywhere. There is no progress to make. You don't get lucky and make those evolutions. You actually are very specific and strategic to make those evolutions.
So
I would say, Joel, we talk about Thanksgiving and Christmas and New Year's and holidays. I think that creatives get it wrong. Halloween does not come before Thanksgiving. The ghosting happens after Christmas and in New Year's because your clients ghost. We tell everybody, like, this time of year, we just had the conversation today. In fact, I reminded my team all week, hey, next Tuesday, remember, no one's had Thanksgiving since 2 years ago because of COVID, and everybody wants to get there, and they are going to disappear on Tuesday morning after they send you that last batch of notes, and you're going to be left like, oh, I've got to deliver this thing by tonight. And then, oh, hey Bob, where are you with the feedback? Did they approve? Bob's not going to write you back because he's on a plane somewhere, or he's driving somewhere to, like, Texas or whatever. So the ghosting happens there. The ghosting happens, like, the days in between Christmas and New Year's, and then definitely in January. So we get Halloween wrong. It's after these holidays.
Dude,
That's hilarious.
I love that you put it that way. Yes, there's always this tension of, right? We do this thing called, well, when the new year starts, we're going to, like, come out with a bang, and all these things are going to fall into place. And what really happens is you start doing your outreach in January, like, hey, client, we're ready to get started on whatever, and we're ready to tackle those problems. And you get ghosted. I love that you put it that way. Like, that's when Halloween hits you. You get ghosted because they will come back to you maybe in February or maybe in March with a thing called, oh, the CFO finally approved the annual budget. Now we're ready to get started. And that was always my scariest time of year, because you're doing these projections and you're saying, if the rest of the year is like January, we're completely SOL. Like, we're in bad shape. So my encouragement to you, everyone here, not just you, Footy, is to just know that's coming, normalize it, and now capitalize on your waste. Like, know that there's going to be downtime, wasted time, and how do you leverage it? Like, you have this enormous resource called a business, a company. What are you going to do with it? And to Tim's point, know that there's a goal out there, start moving towards it. Don't wait for permission. Don't wait for your clients. Just start moving. So, Footy, the prompt that got us into this conversation today was, you sent out an email, a week ago, saying it's been a year, right? And just
Right.
For anyone that's listening, what was that milestone about?
Yeah, we sent out a little newsletter that we're celebrating 1 year as our new branded name. We not just renamed, but we also rebranded, or I guess the other way around. We not just rebranded, we renamed. And it had been 1 year. So on Tim's line about, reflection, well, guess what? Every October for us is going to be a reflection of, hey, it's been another year of this creative studio rocking and rolling. And so you look back and you're like, what happened this year? And so for us, it happens a little bit in the fall. Our break tends to be September-ish. And so it's like a nice, perfect timing for being reflective for our personal anniversary. But then it also does happen again in January. So I get a little bit of like a creative reflection in September each year as we say, hey, let's celebrate this company for another year. But then I get 2 or 3 months of deadlines and deliverables and due dates. And then the week after Christmas, we, the owners, personally take a week to like refresh, recharge. We have a coffee or two, more than we normally would. We kind of let the staff do their thing and try to take off if we can. We cover that time with freelance. And then we jump into like thinking about what is the next year going to look like. We do that individually, and then we also jump into doing that as a team.
Well, one thing that I love that you did right a year ago when you did the rebrand, which included the rename, was you truly invested. Like, it was time, right? There was money, there was energy that went into that. It wasn't just we need to change something quick, put a Band-Aid on it. And I won't go through that whole process, but I think the point that I would just make to everyone that's listening is, notice that for your company to do whatever it is you want it to do next year, there is some preparation. There is some investment.
Mm.
There is some seizing on this time of the year. And when I look at next year, if I was going to create the really simple version of it, it's like, okay, next year, if you want to produce the best work you've ever produced, then it's going to take really great clients, which means you're going to have to really figure out your outreach and your messaging. And from that means you've got to have great positioning, right? Who are we? What do we do? And then of course that all flows from your genius. What is it you're really truly great at? What do you love the most, and so forth. But that is such a intentional process. And for people that are listening here, I'm curious to hear from you. You made that investment in that positioning piece, and now it's, I think, put you in a position to do that outreach, to build with those better clients, to start doing better work and so forth. But what's your take on that? Has it been successful?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I appreciate the idea of like diving into, hey, how's that year been? You know, there's the rebranding process where you launch and you're like, how was rebranding? A lot of people ask that question, but then it's like, and we move on. And when you look back on your refresh and your rebrand and your rename, you tend to just be like, just keep moving forward. So that idea of like, hey, how'd the year go? For us, the positioning thing, obviously super helpful to say, who are we? What are we best at? And put that out there in the brand, and then keep driving it home. And so honestly, the favorite thing that has happened to me about the brand happened yesterday. And that was, I was having coffee with a friend who also happens to be in the same industry and slightly a competitor. We've, been in the same circles for a long time. And they said to me, hey, who's doing your branding? And I was like, why is that? And they said, because like, you're really like hitting the nail on the head with what you guys are, what you're saying you are, and all that kind of thing. And it wasn't necessarily like, oh, it's the most, amazing branding or whatever, but like the way that it was said was, it's ringing true for who you are. It's ringing true for what you're trying to do and what you're trying to say or whatever. And I was like, you know what, daggone it, it's been a year, and that's the best thing I've heard. Was someone coming to me, they didn't need to say anything, but it felt great. And so it's almost like, yes, you totally want a client to say like, oh, I agree with everything you say. But having a colleague say that kind of unsolicited, super awesome. So that's my favorite part of the year.
Footy, we did a conference this morning with some creative entrepreneurs in Serbia, so in the European marketplace. And one of the things we were talking about was positioning. And we gave them this thought of, if you have really clear positioning, you can step into that personality much easier. But if you don't have clear positioning and you're just like everyone else, you actually have a lack of confidence. There's a lack of clarity of who you are. Your personality doesn't come through at all. And people don't know how to connect to you. Like, it's just milk toast, wallpaper stuff.
Yeah.
It sounds to me like you're giving testimony to that belief of that when you did your positioning and you got your marketing images clear and you got your brand out there that matches, you are now becoming that person who you always were. It's just that people are hearing that voice in a clear way.
I love the illustration of anybody who works with brands or networks or whatever corporate, where they give you the style guide and they're like, hey, here's our new style guide. Here's our new graphics package. Here's our new whatever. You need to apply this to everything you do that's branded. And it comes out and they work forever on it. And it's amazing. And the company they hired to do it was amazing. And then it comes to you and they're like, all right, so I know it's only been 3 months, but like, we got to tweak this color. This color's not right. Can you do a different font? That lower third doesn't look right. Or that title graphic, like, hey, let's make a secondary package that just the editors can use. And it's like, it's such and I don't know if allegory is the right word, but like it transfers over to you as a creative company. Like, how many times are you like, wow, they rebranded and then they just changed it all because it didn't work? If they had stuck in there though, like maybe they would begin to build the audience around that particular item. And I think for me, that has been the greatest challenge this year is I feel somewhat, and this is, peeking behind the curtain, which by the way, if you know our brand is on brand, but peeking behind the curtain, I feel like a used car salesman sometimes because I am repeating the stuff over and over. But you know what I'm doing? It's not that I'm repeating it, I'm polishing it, I'm getting better at it so that I know when to use the used cars salesman shtick or when to use the out front, brand new car shtick. So it's this process of like trusting yourself that like all the people that's on your team, they're really good at what they do. And your job is to keep saying in this little frame of mind, this little reference point of your positioning, like here, by the way, here's what is the creative way in which we've determined to tell you we're good at what we do. And then repeating that and polishing it and getting better over time.
Yeah, it is interesting, the repeatability of it, isn't it? You have to be comfortable enough to want to repeat it. It always makes sense to repeat it. And though it feels redundant to you, that people are hearing it and not feeling that awkwardness. Yeah, pretty interesting.
Yeah. I'm curious, Footy. I know in the process, right, of going through the positioning and developing all of that language, right, there was a language library that was built. Is that still like a living, breathing document that your team goes back to, not just you?
It's on the screen right next to me right now.
No way. That's awesome.
Actually, I don't know, 30 minutes before this call, part of our marketing stuff is putting things out on Instagram. That's just about us. And me and the senior editor, we went through and we're like, all right, what's the thing in the language library we haven't capitalized on yet? And we went back to we've got like essentially a list of words that represent us. And we were like, all right, these 2 words, we looked over our whole library and everything we're doing. These 2 words we haven't used yet. Okay, let's get them into the next thingy that we're going to put out. So short answer, Joel, absolutely.
Absolutely. Well, I love Dallas's comment. It was talking about this repeating information is the real key to going to the next level. And I'm curious because Footy, wouldn't you say, well, you kind of said it already, that when you keep saying the same thing over and over again, you feel like the used car salesman. But if you can empathize with the people out there and you use the word audience. If you look at your audience, you realize, you know what, they don't say this every day. They don't talk to me every day. They don't go to our website every day. This is actually still very new and fresh to them. And it will be for years, no matter how much you reach out to them. And I'll say this too, when I get your emails, because I'm on your list, right? There's a certain amount of like, how are they going to say it this time? Like, how's that point of view going to come through this time? And what was the thing that Dave, your partner, wrote in the email this time? Because it just made me laugh. There were just like 2 really, really bad puns. And I was just like, yes, I was like, these guys are so on point. I love it.
We like, for Dave and I, as the ownership side of things, our attempt is to be as close to the line of a dad joke as possible without somebody saying that's a dad joke. So Dave said something like, our one of our phrases is fun trick ponies. And that's part of our whole unicorn thing, which plays off of magic. And he said, I've loved corralling the fun trick ponies. Can't wait to herd them into more creative. Herd, H-E-R-D, and it's, I mean, like used car salesman, it's also like, oh man, that's some bad lines, but that's the fun part of it. That it's like, I can get away with that because I'm a creative. Like IBM and Facebook, they're not saying that on their newsletters, but we get to because we're creatives.
So here's a question, Tim. This is one we were confronted with this morning from the folks in Belgrade. Is some people were asking, yeah, but if I narrow, okay, like you have this very Trick and Mortar point of view, right? That comes out. It's saucy, it's playful. It's a bit goofy, right? Nerdy at times. And people are asking, well, if I narrow, then I'm talking to less people, which means I have less opportunities, I have less jobs, I make less money, all this, right? All these fears start coming up. I'm just curious, has that been your experience at all?
The strange part about our brand, or I would say our company, over the life of the company is we did more fun, playful, silly stuff without the Trick and Mortar name than we have in the past year. The things we've been doing is more like true crime, death, dying, serious stuff. And part of me is like, what is my creative team watching that they have these ideas? I'm kind of like scared to be at the studio by myself with one of them. But has it, from a personality standpoint, I think one of the questions I ask regularly is like, how do you play out your personality but not have it mirror the types of projects that you get? Because one of the challenges we have is, I love doing fun, silly, funny comedy stuff. We're also really good at doing these like life-changing sizzle, trailer type things that are heavy and, Christopher Nolan music, that kind of stuff. And it's such a wide variety for us that what we found is we take a certain chances with certain clients where we say, hey, I know we're fun and playful, and that's going to come across every time you talk to us in the emails, in our correspondence, in our communication, always going to be fun, playful, but we also get it done. However, let me show you a couple of things that are super serious that we've done. And I take a chance on saying, like, here's a genre of things that we've done. I want you to know us for this or this. And I don't get wrapped up in like, oh my gosh, I got to show them a variety of projects that were this and that and all these different things, because I'm taking a chance on the fact that we are creative and we can do all kinds of things. But maybe they don't need to know us for every single thing that we've ever done, because that ends up being overwhelming to the client.
That's so smart. And so Footy, if you were vulnerable, transparent here in this conversation, and could you share what it was really like to do a rebrand and a rename of a company? Because there's many of us that wrap our identity into our brand. If someone were to say to me right now, I have a really good idea, we're going to change the company name RevThink to something else, I'd probably fight them a lot.
I think it should be Meta.
So much into it.
Meta would be a good name for you guys. My company.
That's a difficult moment, isn't it? There's a lot of fear in that moment, isn't there?
We were never more wrapped into our brand because our old brand had our names in it. And what's interesting is I've kind of, there's two things about that. One, so our old company name was FOGO, Fo and Go, which stands for Footy and Gory. And it was it was a little agency name. It was 4 letters. We had a great little logo. Everybody knew us that way for like 10 years. And so there was a little sense of like, hey, we're going to change our name. We're going to freshen this up. Our names are going to come off the building. And that's kind of scary. Not in an ego way, but in like this is going to distance us from what we used to be. And so there's two things about that. We are kind of giving up or handing over the brand to other people that can take it even farther than us. We're welcoming people into the conversation on our team, and also strategically asking other folks, third-party folks, to come and say, hey, what do you think about this? And so the shoulder burden of, hey, I got to be everything that is the company name because my name's in the company. Holy cow, I don't have as much burden now because other people are thinking about how to take this thing farther. And then the second part of this is we actually were able to take the unique aspects of Footy and Gory into Trick and Mortar. So we kind of affectionately say internally, Footy is the trick and Gory is the mortar. So my nickname is Tricky and Dave's is Mortimer internally. Now that doesn't, don't repeat that to the client because we haven't, tuned that one out yet. But there's some level of fun that we play with it because I'm the kind of a little bit forward facing. I take care of the fun and the brand and the making sure the client's happy and all that kind of stuff. And Dave is the like behind the scenes, getting it done, making sure we're technically savvy and all that. So he is the mortar and I am the trick.
There's a saying, all of us get married 3 times in our lives, and some of us are lucky and married the same person. I feel like you've just played the same trick with your business of like, all of us are going to own 3 businesses at the same time. Some of us get lucky and keep the same name or keep the same business and just change the name, right? You have this evolution and maturity of your business that had to go through something that isn't just this startup, small little boutique business, and you wanted to up the game. So it's pretty awesome that you took the risk, because I'm sure it felt that way, to evolve and change, and then obviously see the reward from that.
Yeah, I mean, I appreciate your kind words about going for it and making on this side of the coin, it looks like we went for it and we took the risk and all of that. But man, every step of the way is like, okay, are we going to do this? Can we do this? Okay, yes, this is going to happen. Okay, are you sure? And so it's been a journey. And I would say each year, kind of circling back to the January thing, each year we look back and like, what are the risks we took? What are the things that we did? I keep a list of every positive accolade that our clients have said to us, about us, whatever. And even have it to the point where like I ask my team to forward anything and we keep a long list, and twice a year I just put the list up and we just stare at it. And then we talk about what was cool about that project or whatever. And all that stuff leads us to this point of having the confidence to say like, yeah, we did that thing back there before, we can take the risk again. And do you still kind of, rattle in your boots a little bit on certain things? And like, is this going to work out? Is this going to fall flat? To Joel's point, now he's put even more pressure on me because he's waiting for the next email. So now I got to figure out another way to do Trick and Mortar. So I'm all nervous again.
Well, I'm waiting for this other surprise that I'm not going to spill. I'm not going to let the cat out of the bag because that's your jam. But when you talked about looking at all of the accomplishments, the accolades and so forth, right? That's that confidence boost, which for me is really gratifying because like, if I'm going to be really honest and vulnerable for a moment, like when you and I talked, whatever it was, 1.5 years ago now, and you were saying, we're going through this process and there's this positioning and all this language and so forth. Sure, there's a method, right, to the madness when it comes to positioning. And I knew, sure, we follow this method, we're going to get a really great result. But at the same time, I was scared with you because yes, like as your advisor, as your friend, I was like, if we do this, it's going to be awesome. But deep down inside, there's a part of me that's saying, what if it fails? Like this is right, my client's business. It's all on the line for him. This had better work. And I guess that's just to say that there's always a risk, but we tend to win. Like when you follow a method and the method's proven, you hang in there, you do the work, and you get to celebrate a 1-year anniversary and look up at the wall and say, I think this is working.
I'll testify. That's true. Joel did feel that way. He would share in the RevThink meetings. Like, and then when you guys landed on Trick and Mortar, it was so exciting. It couldn't keep Joel in his seat.
Yeah, I would say the encouragement to the folks here, creatives everywhere, is there's a reason why you're even on this call. You've taken the step of moving forward and saying my creative is beyond me, but your creative is still coming from you. Like the reason why you're even here is because you were creative enough that other people were like, hey, I want more of that. And the risk part of it for Dave and I was always this kind of secure feeling that like, even before the branding and the like, we're a studio and we're, this thing that people know about and whatever, there was still just Dave and I being good old fashioned creatives. And we knew how to make a story, we knew how to edit something or produce something or whatever. And even without all the branding, people still enjoyed working with us. And like, it comes down to enjoying the creative and doing the work. Now, I'm very far stepped out of doing the actual creative work these days. Dave is not, but we always talk about every time we take a risk, we're like, well, we can always go back to being editors. And, you know, and it's a funny joke, but it's also like a reminder of our roots. Like, it's not like I'm running some random industry, you know, financial business or whatever. Like, I'm running a creative studio, and we've seen a lot of them, and we know how they're run, and we know that we're creative, and we know we have something to contribute. And I would say to everybody here, you have something to contribute, whether or not you have the big brand or not. Rest on the fact that you can take the risk, because people love working with you.
Well said, my friend.
I will. I appreciate you saying that. Tim, it's like you and I always say, there's always something in the box, right? Like when the time comes, you don't know what you're going to do, pressure's on, but you open the box and this thing called your imagination, your creativity, all your experience, it all shows up, often to your own surprise, right? Well, look, we need to wrap it up because we're just a few minutes past our 30-minute allotment. Buddy, I can't tell you how much I appreciate seeing you and hearing you share your story. And dude, huge congrats. I'm just really pleased to see you and the team just continuing to keep moving forward and owning it and succeeding.
Thank you, Joel. Always good to talk to you guys. And I love seeing all the work that everybody's doing here. It's just a huge inspiration for, I think, all of us to just constantly be like, hey man, look at that cool stuff. We can, you know, use that in our minds and make even cooler stuff and keep it going. So love seeing all that. Thank you guys.
Well, thanks for being a member of the community. And Tim, this is the time when we remind everyone why the heck we do this in the first place.
Yeah, we exist so you can thrive in business, life, and career. So we appreciate you guys. We love you. And we're not going to be here next Thursday, by the way. So happy Thanksgiving to many of you. Enjoy the holiday, and we'll see you in 2 weeks.
By the way, Tim, good job at that whole repeating information thing, right? You and I say that all the time.
Thanks.
And we're like, isn't everyone getting sick of this? But hopefully it still works.
That's right.
So
exactly.
All right. Well, if you appreciate Footy and what he did, please give him a high five or a shout out. And we'll see all of you in the community. And until the week after next, we'll see you 2 weeks from now for another weekly briefing. Thanks, everyone.
Bye, everyone.